I think I'm here actually today is sort of sharing with my experience, my tears and struggle of using the virtual rather than telling you what we have done brilliantly. Okay, and then my department is geography, environment, and disaster management. And today we focus more on disaster management because I'm teaching these categories. And somehow the case we are going to showcase to you is also the work we have done with the ENC as well. Okay. So historically in disaster management, what we do, we have a lot of exercises in the classroom. So during our open days in year one, already we have a lot of tabletop exercise, a lot of games and different techniques to engage with students. So the pictures here, you can see that actually until first of all, we will have tabletop exercise and then we have a computer based.
I'll give you 20 minutes.
Oh, thank you very much. So I can start. So you can see from this page, actually you can see, during year one, we have students in the classroom and then we teach them how to, for example, raise awareness for risks and then how they can make decisions during disaster, how to respond to disasters. And then year two, they have to go out, they have to work with the primary school children, they have to make presentations, and then also we have works in Taiwan as well, so that's pretty good. So we have a global experience module, and then they go to Taiwan for a field trip. Afterwards, they can continue to do a 1 month placement, so they will engage with students, and they have a lot of classroom-based exercise and then simulation, etc. But I think it's just several years ago, we started to, I think it's about 2006 or things, before even I started, people started to think, actually for this sort of experience, we might be able to utilize them into the virtual world. Okay, and then so I joined Coventry University. I was very lucky because then I've been introduced to the use of Second Life. And at the time I was so naive, I was young, I thought, oh, let's try it. And then we had a very good sort of existing tabletop exercise already. So we utilized Second Life, we converted the existing sort of game to use. So we call this Islandia. And then the purpose of this exercise was actually trying to, engage students with decision making. They have to move the potential victims from South Island to North Island. Okay, if I show you the picture here. So this is a sort of scenario. So the volcano is here and then it's going to be exploded, so people need to move from here to here. And then but somehow, for the government in North Island and Southern Island, they are not happy with each other. And then students, they sort of role play as these government officers and also from the NGOs from the military. They have to negotiate with each other to see how they can sort of work out and then how to move these residents or potential victims to the North Island. So in the past, actually the exercise was pretty well received. Okay, and we thought that might be the best way, and then with best sort of case candidate we can convert it to Second Life. So we did it, and then we had a trial round with students. And then we had 2 exercise, so those are protocol exercise with students, and then we failed totally because I think at the time it was starting point, and then we didn't really learn much, and then so we just sit students in the classroom and said, "Come on, let's play! It's fantastic!" And all chaos because they just, oh, what are we doing? And they started playing with avatars and then try to make really strange things, and then we learned from this. So we started to say, all right, then we shouldn't do it. So when we have the proper run, actually we did a 2-hour session for them to learn the use of avatar and then let them to practice with these, and then also we let them to create their own sort of creatures. And after they are familiar with this, we also assign their roles, and then they will be able to know who are their team members, and then so once they have sort of familiar with each other, and then they will take to this real sort of scenario, and then they will play in the exercise. Okay, and then after they have done that, and then we will have some sort of debriefing with them to reflect on how much they have learned in terms of the skills we wanted them to learn. So for example, the communication, leadership, etc. And then afterwards, actually for the trial round, we also ask them to give us a feedback. And then we have a qualitative and quantitative sort of interviews as well. So this is what happened. Okay, even with this, actually we had a trial round, and then we can see for the pictures here, after the practice, actually students, they felt that they were comfortable. So they use a lot of sort of message, and they use a lot of talk, and then they try to make decisions with that. And then but somehow you can see students, they are funny. You can see this is a female image there, but actually in reality he's a boy. Okay. And then during afterwards we had an interview. He just said that he wanted to try out if he's a female, what would happen in disaster sort of response scenario. He wanted to see if this is different if he changes gender. Okay, and then so this one actually he became a dragon head. because he just didn't want anybody to know who he was, and he wanted to make a really big fuss during exercise, and then because he had a lot of resources, he had a lot of money, and he wanted to have sort of control, and so that is an image of I'm the president with the power. Okay, so and I think for these sort of things, Mark Charles, he wrote an article on the identity in this virtual world. But this is not the thing we want to focus. But what we want to focus actually is on the sort of discussion, the process of discussion they had, and actually they do really engage with the discussion, not only for the verbal, but also for the written. And then, so finally, this is another sort of environment. They would sort of meet together to have a final debrief. And you can see that actually they have sort of finally, during the exercise, they also try to sort of meeting together, because in the sort of classroom-based exercise, people have to move around different tables or organizations to be able to sort out resources. And then in the second world sort of environment, it's not very easy for them to move from building to buildings, but they manage to sort out their meetings and then they meet together. So I think that was sort of pretty good, successful sort of phenomenon. And then somehow, after we finished this exercise, and then we had student feedback, and that is my tear part, because we say, okay, from all this observation, it seems nice and fine, friendly, and everybody was doing something, they are engaging. The result was very negative. Okay, they say, finally, the good thing is that the last night they say, Second Life is promising and then they love virtual world. They think that is sort of future sort of template for running exercise. But do they like it? Not at all. Okay, they didn't like the function of talking, they didn't like the function of messaging, they didn't like the function of sort of virtual environment. So I said, all right then, so they don't like anything, but they still feel that this is sort of potential. I don't know why. And then during this point, I think the point I was reset already, and but then I was off for having a baby, so I was off for 1 year. And then during this year, somehow ENC, they also run another trial. Okay, so they created a sort of converted another sort of their exercise, their project management exercise. Okay, and then it's based in Sudan. And they wanted students to debate. They wanted them to understand different stakeholders' perspectives on whether or not they should build a dam in a village. And then the potential is that this dam will, if it's a heavy rain, it can be overtop, and then the people who live in that dam can be buried under this water. Or also, because if they want to build this dam, village people, some of them have to be moved away. So they have to discuss about whether or not they wanted to have this dam to be built. Okay, and then so they were a little bit luckier, because when we had this Second Life, it was much earlier, so we didn't have much fund. But then somehow they secured bigger funding, so they could extend their environment. So build it sort of much better environment. So they, in this platform, they could create 4 sort of environments. One is in the village, so like here, so you can see they use a sort of sky sort of thing. It means that actually when you see there, this is the water level, so they can simulate that they were actually sitting underneath the water to make it more real. Okay, so during this exercise, students, they have to decide the groups. So they need to decide that they wanted to be, the villagers, or they want to be the dam constructors. They need to sit in and agree or disagree. And then afterwards, they need to finalize that why they want to agree with this project or they disagree. And then finally, they will discuss with each other, and then finally, they will reach a final decision. Then there is no right answer or wrong answer, but the process is that they have to discuss, and then the process is really important. And then finally, actually, because they secure some funding, so they also run this exercise with 5 other universities. Okay. So, and then after they have done that, I come back, and then we met together. I said, oh, you have done that. I've done that. That's fantastic. And then let's talk about your result of exercise. And then very luckily, because the learning outcome or the skills we wanted to train students, some of them are overlapped. So for example, the communication, coordination skills, because more or less it's about development. It's about how we can sort of negotiate with people. And then I say to them, well, my result was not very good because people didn't like it. How about yours? And then they say, actually, it's not too bad. So we identified several sort of, questionnaires we had, and that is common. And then we did some comparison. Okay, and then, so CUI, that is identity, so it's from the disaster management, and HD is a hydrological dam project. So you can see the comparison. I know it's very difficult because it's all numbers. I show you the picture. Okay, nice graph. Okay, so you can see how do they feel about the control platform. Actually, you can see the green line is disaster management students, and red line is an ENC students. Because in DMs, we allow students to create their own avatars. They are allowed to create anything. So they feel that they are much more control. Okay, and then for ENCs, they knew what we did, what we had before. So they help them to create their avatars. You can see the picture. All of them have a tiger head or proper people. Okay, so I think that is the best result we have for DMers, so I put it here, the first one. And afterwards, you can see, actually, if you see that I understand the purpose of the exercise, you can see straight started, people in ENC, they started to understand more why they want to run this exercise on a virtual world platform. And then the next one, communication skills. Very quickly, you can see ENC people, they started to have, sort of better performance to DMers. Okay, so the same sort of similar arrangement and requirement as well. And then for the voice chat, 5 minutes voice chat. Okay, we have Islandia, they don't like it at all by ENC actually. Too, you can see very big sort of comparison. And then for the message there, straight away again. And then, so intrinsic exercise. So ENC people, of course, they love it so much. And then DMers, not really. And then very successful, yeah, okay, maybe similar. So you can see already from this sort of small comparison, ENC people, they are more tend to have, interested in this sort of project. Afterwards, we also have another exercise on another platform, but it's also a virtual exercise with a similar thing. And then we find from this exercise result we find is that we run this exercise with the senior officers in emergency service. We also run this with our students. The comparative result tells us that the senior people hated it so much. They understand inside out all the skills we required. Teamwork, communication, leadership, anything, they know it inside out. But do they like it on the virtual platform? Don't like it. Okay. I said, all right, they don't like it. And then, actually, they shouted during the exercise because they just don't like it, they don't get it. They say, why do I want to waste my time here? Okay, so you can see these sort of big comparison between the seniors and the juniors. And then straight away, you can see the lines. The juniors is better than the senior. And then, so, until this point, I was thinking, what can we do? Because, if there are such a big difference, and then how are we going to continue with our pedagogy? And somehow we do have some findings. So you can see that actually, from this in terms of immersion and usability, actually people they find it's good, but still there are sort of age gaps or user group gaps. Okay, and the process, the unstructured inject were preferable to those with experience and the newbies. So how we operate the exercise actually is important. That do we give them more sort of directions, and that is important when they like the sort of environment or not. And then so learning outcomes, we say there are more difference between user groups. So I would say especially for ENCs or for the youngers, they have better learning outcome among these sort of virtual world environments. Okay, so and then I think I also identified some people because some of them from ENCs because it's sort of more sort of realistic situations, so people like it more. And then for our sort of exercise in Islandia or the other one, it's sort of strategic flight exercise because it's simulated island. People don't like it because they couldn't link with their own life, so they wanted to have sort of more real scenarios. So I think these might be the next step. But in any case, after we have done these 3 exercises, I had a little bit reflection. I was saying, all right, then if the trend of this pedagogy say that we must increase digital literacy, okay, if we are we're encouraged to learn these new technologies, but at the same time, some students didn't like it than others. What are the things we can actually help? And then I said, let's do it within our department. So I had overall general survey to everybody who attended the lecture within 1 month. Okay, and then we do over a month's period of time. I surveyed to them, I asked them about whether or not they would like, the use of computer games or the virtual world or tabletop exercise or just normal lectures. Okay, now during the questionnaire, I also asked them, I defined these sort of terminology for them and asked them to give me the answer. So this is the thing they like. You can see, actually, they like to have role play. And then the percentage of these IT games or normal games is such a big gap. Okay, so among our department, so we have 3 sort of streams. We have geography, we have gamers, and then we have oil and gas students. So they are very different. And I can see the reason why I said they are very different because, and I break it down for geographers and DMers, you can see straight away, more DMers actually they prefer to have this role play sort of traditional tabletop than the IT games or even games. The games means that if we just play small games, okay, not even with the IT, just game, they just feel that it's not professional enough. Okay, it's time, and then that's nice, okay. But and then comparably, geographers actually they are more sort of in favor of this game. And then I think I have some slides on, I had some interviews with them and they say, why don't you like these virtual world and things? And then these are some of the feedback. So I think maybe it's time that we need to think if we want to enhance the digital literacy, we might want to find a way to facilitate students to see how we can engage them with the use of these IT facilities. Okay, that's my presentation today.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Okay, are there any questions?
Yeah, it's really interesting. Going back to your original scenario, it seemed from what you were saying that you constructed this yourself. That was a kind of fictionalised scenario of the North and South Island. I'm just wondering, particularly for your subject, more than perhaps other subjects, did you use real case studies, real life scenarios, and say, these are the possible outcomes, but let's see what would happen if you role played in that particular way rather than that way, and then evaluate it in terms of responses and logistics as well.
I would say that for this exercise, I didn't write it because when I joined the university, we had an exercise already, and then because we have done that, so that's why we do it. And then for this exercise, actually, it's based on partial real, because this island was real in Montserrat. And then in Montserrat, they had this problem of the government didn't like each other. So actually it's partial real already. But in our modules, actually we do have sort of role plays on this based on the sort of real event. So for example, in one of my modules, we use the nuclear power explosion in Japan, 2011. We use that as a base for them to discuss about how they prepare. Actually, the module was on early warning and informing, how they prepare the early warning message, and also how they should inform the public if nothing happens, and then how should the government or the sort of electronic companies, they should inform the public about the public message. So we do based on user real.
Kind of, are they pre-programmed in these scenarios? Is it Second Life or whatever? Do they program it for you and they say, okay, we made this scenario for you?
I think for this, the difficulty is that because I have no idea, I'm such an old generation already, and then we need to ask someone to help us
It'd be quite difficult
to do it.
There'd be a lot of programming involved to get
Well, I think for this actually because our university is pretty good. We have a lot of people, students, they can do it. And for this project, actually, one student helped me to construct every single thing in the world.
What I need,
I just have to do is just if I learn to log on to the world, I can do it.
Would it be fair to say, from interpreting what you're saying right now, that students much prefer the role plays, real life, face-to-face interaction?
Well, what I'm saying is emphasize is my department because I didn't do the whole university survey. I only surveyed within my department.
But should we then really be encouraging students and ourselves to go back to face-to-face interactions?
Well, I think there is something I would like to argue because I can see the benefit of using sort of e-learning or whichever digital sort of supportive thing. But it's just the way, how we persuade them. Because I think students normally, if they cannot click with, the practicability of these tools provided with them, and then they will say no. But actually it's about how we engage with them and how we persuade them, saying that actually this is pretty good, how you can utilize them, how you can apply it to real life. And I think that's missing.
And how do we do that then, if the results come back the other way around?
I think it's really my learning process as well. And then what I did before, we didn't say, I should come on, let's play this game. And then now I will say, I will give them more example of how you can utilize this in reality and give them more explanation on why this can be applied and how this will be duplicated in your future career, etc. And I think then that they might be more interested and they might feel that it's more useful. I think maybe it's just their study culture.
In terms of serious games, it depends on the type of serious game, and sometimes students are affected by their perception of the tool. Second Life was never liked by undergraduates, never. And I wonder whether it had to do with that. And also then it started being so intensive on resources that people were against it for ethical reasons. Because the fact, to run Second Life in one day, you could have lit the whole of an African country. So the thing is, there were issues with that, and students were becoming quite aware of that. And so with Second Life in particular, there were issues of that type.
Second Life was already old hat when it came out. When we had it here, there were games being run which were far in advance.
Can I just say what John does, and he's being very quiet, but you can do serious games, and John can do serious games in a kind of blended way, like John does. He uses part technology, part face-to-face, and they're extremely effective. And they are serious games. I didn't understand anything what he was doing, trying to teach me economics, but I could see the pedagogy.
It's the greatest challenge of my life.
Okay, but can I just say, we probably need to come and see, otherwise we'll take too much time. But we'll have more questions at the end. Thank you very much.